joining me on another edition of the Atlanta Small Business Show. Today I am so excited to have with us a young lady that's going to talk to us about marketing, both social, traditional, you name it. We're going to cover it all today, and I'm really excited to have her in. She is actually the owner and CEO of The Partnership, which happens to be Atlanta's oldest privately held marketing and branding digital communication agency. So that is Amanda Lucey that I'm talking about. So welcome into the show, Amanda.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Sure. So wow, Atlanta's oldest. You don't look old enough to have Atlanta's oldest company. So
I get
talk
that
to
a
us
lot.
about that.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely. So we are the oldest privately held marketing agency in Atlanta.
Wow.
Established in 1979.
Wow.
And the founder of the company and I actually worked together when I was client side.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was one of the agencies that I worked with.
Cool.
And I actually ended up acquiring the company last year. So
Very
I've
cool.
owned the partnership for about a year and a half now. It's been a great journey. You know, we have grown tremendously. We're now the fastest growing female agency in Atlanta.
Wow.
And,
You got a couple of monikers there. You got the
Yes.
oldest coupled with now the fastest growing female-owned agency. And,
That's right.
Wow, you're making
Yes.
some waves out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
great.
now it's time for us to start telling our story because being in Atlanta for 40 years, obviously we've worked with some great brands.
Right.
Intercontinental Hotel Group has been a client for 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
We built the Crown Plaza brand. We worked on the Holiday Inn Express brand.
That is so
We worked
cool.
with Ferrari and Coca-Cola and lots of big brands over the years.
Right.
But we've been kind of head down telling, other people's stories,
Sure.
and now we're trying to do more about telling our story too, because a 40-year legacy is really impressive.
There's no question about it. Wow, and those are some really big brands. However, not to intimidate, the small business owners out there, right? Because they're like, whoa, we're not
Absolutely.
Ferrari and
Sure.
the big hotels that you're working with. But can they afford an agency like yours if they're spending that kind of money?
Absolutely.
They can.
So we work with smaller companies as well.
Okay.
And that's how I built my company, right?
Okay.
With lots of companies that are local
Sure.
and are right here in Atlanta. And we actually work with the plastic surgeon in Med Spa, for example, that's in
Okay.
Alpharetta. And they have limited resources as well. But it's important to tell your story,
Right.
regardless of the size that you're at. And one of the things we work with our customers, which we like to call partners, instead of clients, we call them partners.
Makes sense at the partnership.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. We work with partners. It's important to tell your story, and how you go about doing that is all about brand belonging.
Okay.
And so we talk about the art of belonging. And regardless of your size, it's important to connect with consumers on a deep level, and brand belonging is where it starts.
Yeah.
So when I acquired the partnership, we went through a rebranding exercise.
Okay.
And not just changing the color,
Yeah.
we obviously kept the name, but looking at our icon and our logo.
Okay.
And so one of the things we did was we changed the logo, and it has 3 pillars now.
Okay.
And the reason is because it's foundational in everything that we do.
Okay.
So the first pillar is all about clients, which we call partners, of course, being
Sure.
a partnership. But of course, they're key to our success and working with partners that makes sense. And we're helping them create brand belonging.
Right.
The second is consumers or community.
Okay.
And so that works for B2C or B2B.
Right.
And making sure that that second pillar is really strong as well. And then the third is agency, which is where we come into play as well.
Okay.
So all 3 pieces of that are really critical. And at the center of that, you have brand belonging.
Okay.
And so brand belonging is critical to all 3 pieces of that logo.
Sure, it's like a 3-legged stool, right?
Absolutely.
You can't have success with one of those pillars not being there, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dive down into that brand belonging, because that's a new phrase that I've heard. It makes sense, but talk to me about what brand belonging really means.
And it's critical in today's environment, because if you think about it, consumers are bombarded with over 10,000 brand messages a day.
I know, it's
from
incredible.
Instagram and
Yes,
Facebook
yes.
and websites.
I don't
It's just
put
constant.
this stupid thing down.
All the time.
Right, and when I do, I'm
Absolutely.
nervous. How come that's not in my hands right now?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? So when you're bombarded with so many pieces of communication and so many brand messages every day, how do you get that deep belonging that everyone's really looking for? It actually helps when you look at issues in crisis as well. When a brand goes through a crisis situation,
Yeah.
people are more willing to forgive that brand if they feel like they belong.
Ah, good
And
point.
so
Very
brand
good
belonging
point.
is really
Yeah.
important. It's storytelling,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so we're in the business of storytelling and making
Okay.
sure that we're telling our brand stories.
Sure. And what you're talking about right now is more on the PR side
Sure.
than it is on the advertising side, right?
But it's a holistic approach now.
Right,
So
right.
it's all connected. People used to think about PR as a silo and marketing
I
as
know.
a silo, but now it's your holistic strategy.
Sure.
And so when you're thinking about brand belonging, you have to completely back up and look at your entire marketing plan and your strategy.
Right.
And a lot of it starts with your story.
Sure. And taking an approach like that isn't the same as when maybe one of your companies comes in and says, I want to run this ad, and what's the ROI on it? How many new patients did I get, or how many widgets did I sell, or how many calls did I get for my real estate office? It's different than that today, isn't it? Because you really have to tell your story, and it's got to have some time to resonate with consumers in that market, right?
Absolutely. Having a return on your investment is still critical, and
Right.
it's really important, and it's why we stay in business and grow,
Sure.
right? People want to have measurement, they want to see that they're growing, and they want to see those results. What we always like to tell our partners is that you need a strategy and you need a plan.
Right.
So oftentimes, whether you're a small business or a large business or anything in between, we have a lot of our partners that go. They just want to go. And they're like, let's just go. But the ready, set part is missing.
Right.
And so our process is called ready, set, go. And it sounds very simple,
Sure.
but it's really important to make sure that you are measuring the right things and asking the right questions to have the right plan in place.
And it's important too not to listen to every person that calls or reaches out to you through email because I've got the latest and greatest. You need to be advertising in my medium, and that's what's going to drive traffic. And I think a lot of small business owners kind of get into that, right? They've maybe got a magazine ad and they got a little radio buy and they're doing something on the internet, but they're really not sure, and they don't have anybody to bring it together, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are also frustrated marketing people that say, no, I can do this myself. But if you're not schooled in it and you don't know what you're doing, you can get into trouble with it, not just financially and making some bad calls there, but you might also be sending out different messages with every single medium that you're using, which is a big mistake, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, even with a company like mine, I have over 20 employees, and things are constantly evolving and changing.
Right.
And that's why you have the resources in place and experts to make sure that you're staying on top of the latest trends.
That's right.
So social media changes, algorithms change on Google constantly.
Yep.
So it's important that you have experts in place to help make recommendations to make sure your marketing plan is working.
That's right.
Because why would you invest in something if you don't even know if it's going to work?
I know. And it's interesting because a lot of the small business owners that are listening to us right now say, well, I've got an attorney for my legal situation, and I have an accountant, a CPA for my accounting, right? And I've got a consultant that consults with me on the overall growth and the future of the business. But in marketing, I'm handling that myself. I can do that. I can place an ad. I can do whatever I got to do in terms of digital and social marketing. But that's a mistake, right?
It's important to have recommendations from experts
Right.
that are on top of things and have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I think it's important to have that strategy and plan in place too. The storytelling piece, entrepreneurs are great at telling stories, right? And they're great at telling their own story, and they should.
Right.
But they need to have a plan in place to make sure that it's actually syncing up with their goals.
Right, for sure. How has consumer engagement with marketing and branding messages changed over the past few years?
I talked a little bit about the fact that we're bombarded with over 10,000 brand messages a day. And actually, the attention span of consumers has changed as well.
That's
so
what are we saying? No, I'm kidding. That's how fast it is, though, isn't
right?
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in 2000, the attention span of most people was around 12 seconds. Today, it's 8 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
A goldfish has an attention span of 5 seconds. So
we're all turning into goldfish.
That's right. So we are having so much competition in the marketplace, and there's a lot of noise out there. And so how do you break through the noise and make sure that your target audience is hearing you?
That's right. And in order to do that, you don't have to be spending $1 million a month, right? I think there's small business owners out there that go, how am I going to, break through the noise that you were just talking about on my $10, $15, or $20, $25,000 budget that I've got? How do I do that? How do I compete against the big guys out there that are also in my space that are dropping, just tens of thousands of dollars in Atlanta? Is it possible to compete with those guys?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I think that's, again, where brand belonging comes into place, and making sure you have brand believers. And having other people tell your story and share what you're doing is so powerful. And so there's influencers, of course, and there's people who believe in your brand, and there's lots of ways to get there. But starting with a plan and making sure you're allocating your resources wisely is really important.
Right, for sure. What do you perceive are the challenges in the advertising space at the moment?
Authenticity is always a challenge in advertising, and it's very important today, especially with the younger generations coming along. They want to see authenticity, and social media has exposed everything and everyone.
That's right.
So it's important that when people are making purchasing decisions, that they believe in you and they believe in your brand, and that you're authentic.
Right. And authentic doesn't mean that you've got to, show everything about yourself personally or anything. It just means be true to your consumers out there in an effort to make them fans of your brand and shoot them straight, right? Because everyone that walks, either before they walk into a company, they're picking up this to see what are the ratings, or I should say, what are the reviews, and then after they leave that company, they're also going back on to go, well, they took very good care of me, or in some cases they didn't take good care of me, and I wouldn't recommend sending somebody there, right?
That's right. That's
so
right.
it's important that that's handled properly.
Right, and no brand's perfect, and
Right.
people make mistakes, but
Right.
being authentic in that as well, and making sure that you're responding when you do have negative reviews,
Right.
or you see something negative online, making sure that you are addressing it.
Right.
The worst thing you can do is no comment and not saying anything at all, because
Yeah.
it conveys guilt. And so it's important to be
Ah,
authentic,
okay.
whether it's great news or bad news,
Yeah.
being transparent, telling your story.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And what would you say to businesses that are struggling to see a strong ROI, from their marketing budget now?
So one of the things that we do at the partnership is we define the why for many brands.
Okay.
So whether you're an entrepreneur starting out a brand new company, or you've been around for 30 years in business, it's important to define the why. And so it helps you shape your entire communications and marketing plan,
Okay.
which then defines what your goal should be and what you should have for a return investment.
Okay.
And so defining your why and making sure that you have that plan in place will help you have lasting consumer positive experiences.
And is it safe to say that if I hire an ad agency like yours, you're going to come in and tell me, hey, you're not spending enough money, you got to double your budget?
No, absolutely not. No,
All right.
no.
That's not a standard then.
No, it's
Okay.
not. I think it's important to meet people where they are
Yeah.
and help understand where they're coming from. So
Sure.
when I first started a company, I wanted to be the anti-agency. And our tagline was listen, learn, and provide solutions.
Okay.
And so when I went through an acquisition, it was important for me to, from a philosophical perspective, identify with a brand that I believed in. And,
Sure.
and the partnership made a lot of sense, because the way that we present ourselves isn't with a presentation at all.
Right.
Actually trademarked the idea of partnership over presentation.
Okay.
And what that means is that we roll up our sleeves and we get in the trenches with you and really help you
Oh, wow.
identify solutions to your problems.
Very cool.
And so we don't just come in and say, ta-da, we have
Yeah.
this brilliant presentation and we know everything.
That we've canned for the
That's
last
right,
20
and we just keep
pitches,
double
right?
on the price.
That's
No,
right.
that's not how we operate at all. And so it is about us listening and learning and providing solutions and being your partner over doing a presentation.
Right, hence the name partnership. Right?
Partnership, that's
but,
right.
But that's so important because for a business owner, the marketing is such a big part, such a big component of that business. And if you don't have the right partnership in your ad agency and PR company, you can get into trouble financially very quickly. Because
Absolutely.
you're really you're relying on that partnership for them to hold up their end of the bargain, to go, look, I got this great company, you now need to tell everyone in Atlanta how great I am.
That's right. And partnership over presentation for us goes much deeper than that. If we have a new partner that's coming to us and looking to work with us, and they tell us some of their challenges and what they're wanting to do,
Sure.
and we don't feel like it's going to be in alignment and that
Right.
we can't help them, we'll identify someone that can help them in the marketplace. We
Oh,
have
that's
lots
cool.
of
Okay.
partners
Yeah.
that are also agency ally partnerships
Okay.
in different verticals and service lines.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
That's-
really
that's
important
pretty
for us
cool.
to make sure that we are working together. It's all about relationships, right?
Right,
We're in the business
right.
of relationships and making sure that
Right.
people are getting the right relationship that they need.
As your clients should be in that same business of relationships, right?
Yes.
That's the only way to really create fans among your consumers and your customers is when they feel as though they're in a partnership with you, right? So that
Right.
you've got that customer for life if possible, right?
Right. Goes back to brand belonging.
Yeah, it really does, which is so important. So talk to me, where do you see your agency in the next 5 years and how are you going to get there?
So we are actually looking at acquisition.
Oh,
We'll
really?
likely
Okay.
acquire again.
Wow.
We want to expand our services
Okay.
and probably bring some of those in-house, which makes a lot of sense. We
Okay.
do have some great partnerships right now
Great.
with other agencies, but it makes sense for us to bring more in-house, of course, from an economies of scale perspective.
Sure.
We are really working on expanding our story and making sure that we're marketing ourselves as well. And so doing more case studies, getting on stage and
Right.
telling our story.
Getting on
is
great
important
shows
as
like
well.
this.
Absolutely, yes, definitely. So it's an important piece. I think oftentimes as entrepreneurs, and this is a tip I could give entrepreneurs,
Sure.
is that we have our head down and we're working so hard
That's right.
and we're focused on building our company. And oftentimes we do that very successfully, but
right.
we don't sometimes reflect back and tell our own story and
That's right.
share our success.
Yeah.
And that's an important piece of this as well.
Yeah, for sure. And what other types of or what other advice would you have for somebody that's starting out and building their business? They hear you're a young CEO and owner of a progressive agency here in Atlanta, and they're looking at you going, "How did she get there?" And what advice would you have for other people starting out? What do they need to focus on? What do they need to stay away from?
Talent's important.
Okay.
Hiring the right people, obviously, is
Right.
critical to success. And I have an amazing team of wonderful people around me that help make me better, right?
Sure.
Hire people that are smarter than you is always an effective
Right.
way to grow. Stand on the shoulders of giants is what I like to say as well. But I think as an entrepreneur, for us to promote the reasons to believe in our company.
Okay.
If you can promote the reasons to believe and people have a good understanding of that, then you're going to see the return on your investment come.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Amanda Lucey, owner and CEO of The Partnership. This is a agency that you will, if you haven't already heard about it, it's been around since 1979. You guys must be doing something right. You're going to hear a lot more about it. So, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Atlanta Small Business Show. This has been very enlightening. And for those of you that are looking for a great agency to grow your business, here it is, right here. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show. ASBN is a part of the JBF Business Media family.